to be the moderator today for our awesome panel. I just have a couple of things. Oh, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
This girl.
Thank you, Nicole. Nicole.
So a couple of things, just a few words that I have before we go into the panel. I know you guys got some material saying that the discussion was titled Sustainability and Activism, but our panel today will focus specifically on providing insight into being a leader in the field of sustainability. Our four panelists today are going to share their stories, advice, and best practices. And just a few words about how our office, so Jen and I both work at the sustainability office here on campus. We're a student-driven office that works to implement sustainable initiatives throughout the college and community. I challenge you guys today to see sustainability more than recycling or taking the bus, and see it more as a way for students to know themselves, their strengths, and how they can create change. At our office, we focus a lot on student development, both personally and professionally, so our interns after graduation can create change in the world regardless of the field they're working in. For me, myself personally, being a leader doesn't mean yelling the loudest or making the best PowerPoint presentation, although a beautiful PowerPoint presentation is very helpful. But it is actually the person who understands themselves, what they bring to the table, and how they can empower others to create sustainable change. It is such an honor to be with our four leaders of sustainability in Charleston here with us tonight. Today we're joined by Sara Clow, General Manager for Growfood Carolina, Jen Jones, Facilities Coordinator for Sustainability at the College of Charleston, Wayne Koerkeritz,
You got it right? Yes.
owner of Food Waste Disposal, and Katie Zimmerman, Program Director for the Coastal Conservation League. We'll start today with brief introductions by our panelists, where they'll tell their story and provide more information on their organization. I have a couple of questions prepared for them, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from you guys. So please join me in welcoming our awesome guests today. Ms. Jones, would you like to start?
Absolutely. So they just asked for us to just kind of give you guys an introduction to who we are, what we do, and how we got to where we're at. So as Ashlyn said, my name is Jen Jones. I'm the Facilities Coordinator for Sustainability here at the college. And in that role, it's my job to work with our operations, so anything that supports our campus existing as a physically tangible infrastructure, or you having the things that you need as a student to be on campus. It is my role to work with those people who make that happen and encourage them and help them and provide resources for them to make more sustainable choices in how we operate the campus. So I'm sure you all know recycling is probably the most first thing that pops into your head. So yes, I do a lot with the recycling program. I'm the recycling shop supervisor, so I work with them to figure out how we can make it a more sustainable program, start capturing more materials, work towards this zero waste goal that we have, which means that we're going to divert 90% of our materials that we produce on campus from the landfill through recycling or composting. How I got here, that's a fun story. So one thing that we talk about in our office is what our director calls the crooked trajectory. Basically, this job did not exist when I was a freshman in college, or even a senior or super senior in college. It's fine. You're all fine. It's fine. 5 years, 6 years. So I think one of the most important things for me in my career is understanding that the idea of this career that you go into, that you just spend the next 20, 30 years doing the same thing, that's dead. That's not a thing anymore. So it's starting to become more important to develop the skills to be marketable in the job market, to be marketable as a person who has these things to offer, and it could be applied here or here or here or here. That's been really important for me because I started as a biology major with a botany emphasis. So like I'm a super duper plant nerd. I could go, we'll walk outside. You don't want to do that with me because I'll tell you what this plant is, what family it's in, and probably its scientific name. It gets old quick. So then I thought, for the first thing I wanted to do, I thought I wanted to be a vet. So I go to school and I'm like, veterinarian, yes, I'm going to change the world and save the animals. It's going to be great. I get to physics and I was like, whoa, no, me too. No, this ain't gonna work for me. So I was like, okay, so I love animals. I'm gonna be a zookeeper. Yeah, zookeeper. I'm gonna conserve animals. This is gonna be great. I go and I have this internship at the zoo in the school that I went to, and found out they get paid like $14, $15 an hour for the rest of their life. No, sorry, I'm not signed up for that. So then I thought I wanted to be a conservation biologist, and I was going to go out and do all this research and find these amazing things and save the world that way. And I got into science, and a lot of the places that I was in, they were doing research for the sake of research, and they would go and they would do a research paper and they would write it up and they would set it on the shelf, and they would go and they would do a research paper, and then they'd have this shelf of papers and doing what with it. And so I couldn't do that. I needed to be fulfilled in my career and to do something with my career and be able to look back and say, this is the change that I've done, this is the change that I've made. So that sort of led me to looking for a graduate program that married policy and science together in a way that allowed me to use my scientific background to do something with it. And that narrowed down to two schools, Antioch University in Keene, New Hampshire, and here at the College of Charleston in the Master's of Environmental Studies program. So I visited Keene, New Hampshire in November, and I said, well, Charleston it is. So that's how I ended up here in Charleston. And when I first came here, I'm going to be real honest, I graduated with a 2.99 GPA from my undergrad. I just wasn't into what I was doing. I didn't care about the classes I was going to, and I just didn't go. So there's life after that, so let me just get that clear. But it took me a long time through sort of extra classes and all these other things that I've looked at and tried to do and see if I wanted to do to really figure out what was driving me. And when I came here, I was so ready to just do something right. And I really wanted to get involved in what was happening on campus, so I met up with the sustainability committee that was going on back then, got plugged into those folks, was part of the team that helped to present the green fee. All of you guys, raise your hand if you know that you pay $10 a semester that goes to, I used to do this and like 3 people would raise their hand. This makes my heart leap. But $10 that you pay each semester goes to an aggregate e-collective fund. And it goes to support the things that we do in the Office of Sustainability. Like my salary and our director's salary, they don't come out of that, but like our students, all of our students, raise your hand. Hi guys. Any of them that do a paid role, that's how we pay for them to do this stuff on campus. Or if you want to put in a proposal to do something on campus and do a project, that's where that funding came from. So I was part of the group of students to present that idea to the Board of Trustees and get that approved. And then I got involved with our director, Dr. Brian Fisher, and we sort of formed this this task force of people who were like, we want to see change on campus, we don't know how to do it, but we're just going to get together and talk about it all the time. And that melded into us being a part of the search committee when they realized that, hey, $200,000 a year, which is what the collective fee totals out to be, is a lot of money. Somebody needs to manage that. Let's hire somebody to manage that. We were part of that search committee. They ended up being wire researching outside of the campus. We have Brian Fisher here. This man is made for this job. And then I got hired as the first graduate assistant, and in 2012 I got hired in full-time. So why am I in this position? Basically, it was need-based. There's no thing other than it was a need, it needed to happen, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I don't think that the old model of you go and you get this major that this thing that you really want to do, and then it moves on and it leads to your career. That's not necessarily the way that it has to go. So I think the biggest thing you could take away from me is that if it's not what your mom and dad told you it should be, it doesn't mean that you're not successful. It doesn't mean you can't be happy, and it doesn't mean you can't have a fulfilling career. They also asked us to talk about one characteristic that they think is really important in a leader. I think my number one would be empathy, is because so many people, you get so far in your career and you think you know so much and you think you can do so much, but you forget what it was like to be down in the dregs. And I see so much, a big gap between the people who are making the policies, making the rules, the procedures, and the people who are doing them. And this doesn't connect with this, and you can't get things done if those two don't connect. So the biggest thing that I've learned on how to be an effective leader is you have to be able to empathize with the people who are working for you, get down in the ditches, get dirty, do work with them to really understand what's going on and to be an effective, knowledgeable leader. So I'll stop talking then.
Oh, are you timed? Do you have the buzzer?
It's good.
I don't
No, I'll put my phone away because I'm just going to have to time
I got a secret
myself.
phone right
Oh, you do? Okay. And Kurt. Done. All right. Good evening, everyone. Hey. Wayne Koerkeritz, I guess now officially known as President of Food Waste Disposal. It's a tax policy change.
Nice, I like it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good.
One of the things I've learned, yes, how to be better in taxes. Listening to Jen, it sounds a lot. I think there's going to be a common theme that runs through here is that if you're a leader in areas that have anything to do with sustainability, I think there's something about being able to connect and do and be active in your chosen profession. So versus taking that traditional sort of CEO track, a lot of us started out getting dirty, doing something. A lot of us, some of us, most of us probably still get dirty in what we do. So my path was also crooked. I think if you've ever seen the graph, right, sort of the straight line that says how you think it is, and then it's all the curls and zigzags and everything and how it actually is and where you're going to end up, which is great, right? Life is messy. Life is messy, and embrace the mess, right? So don't get down about it. Don't think that just because something didn't work out here that nothing else is going to ever work out. It's messy, and it is. Relationships are messy, jobs are messy, everything is. And so it's okay though, but you persevere, you get through it, and that's what happens. What's that? Yeah, food waste and composting is messy.
Garbage is
messy. See the theme? Yeah. So I started off to go a little bit back. Yeah, I headed off to college after high school. Thought I wanted to go into public relations and sort of be into all this policy. And I was kind of a wonk, still am, but that didn't necessarily go the way I thought. So after a year and a half, I left school, not because of grades, but more on principle, which is really kind of strange. But then what did I do? I went and joined the Navy and did that for 6 years. So happy Veterans Day. So that was really kind of a turning point for me in the idea that I needed to complete something. I'd always been kind of this underachiever, non-completer, because I didn't want to necessarily fail at anything. So I sort of forced myself to have to go complete something. You really just can't walk away from that contract. So that was good, but you also start to see some amazing leadership styles, some good, some bad. You work with a cross-section of people that you probably never would have come across were it not for being thrown into this pot and having to stew together for 6 years. So a lot of great lessons that came out of that, and when it was time to leave the service, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to be a land surveyor, but I was really lousy at it. So a lot of times it's good to find out what you're awful at, so you can cross that off the list and move on to the next thing. So I got into luxury hospitality on the back end side, on the maintenance facility side, taking care of buildings and plumbing and distribution of electricity and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that you see in that field is you're sort of in charge or awfully close to loading docks and dumpsters. And you see how much waste is generated in hospitality. You see how much even more waste is generated in luxury hospitality. And so it started to come together in the idea of what can we do, what can I do to affect change in an organization. So, one of the things I think about being a leader is solve the problems that it's okay to solve small problems. Sometimes we get this idea that we have to solve world hunger, but you're only going to get there by solving hunger in your community. And then start with the things that you can affect, and don't get overwhelmed by these big, massive global issues that you yourself are probably not going to solve. So some great questions, by the way, Ashlyn, on here. Really good, thought-provoking ones. So if you had asked 20 years ago, is this where you thought? No, I would not. Actually, it's probably closer to 25 years ago. But, no, this is not it. But again, it's a great path. It's a great journey. In terms of a characteristic that I think every leader should possess, it's similar. I was hoping I didn't have to cross mine off, but it's humility. It is humility, and I think this is what really got me thinking. There's this common thread that's going to run through here, is because hers was empathy, mine's humility, but it comes down to the same thing: is that we're not going to ask anybody to do something that we haven't done ourselves or wouldn't do, right? Because we've gotten dirty and we get in the trenches and we know what it's like. You know, I still, even though I'm, you know, have a fancy title, it doesn't, I mean, I went out and collected food waste for 10 hours today, right? So that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. To me, there's nothing below me. And so don't ever think that you can't participate in the thing that you're trying to espouse and show. And it's, as a leader, there's nothing more, well, put it this way, not even so much as a leader, but as a follower, that's what I wanted to see, was that somebody had some skin in the game. Didn't mean they had to do it all the time, just that they know how to do it and that they would do it. A piece of advice that I would give to you is when you walk into a room, don't try to be the smartest person in the room. Try to become the smartest person in the room. Okay, big difference there. So you get a lot of people that come in and puff up the chest and want to do, you know, I know this and I know that. Go in and listen. Go in and try to become the smartest. Try to mine information from everybody else in the room. And I would say if you can kind of shift your focus on that, then that's going to be a good step for you.
Can I add one more thing? So Wayne actually, and food waste disposal. So if any of you are eating, actually
I'm supposed
even
to tell you what I do.
Composting here. Do you want to?
Do you want me to go back to that? Like the most, okay.
I want them to see the face of who.
Got it, all right, yes. So everybody that eats at Liberty or City Bistro or Stern Center or where else, and you have all these compostable products, they all go into a composting bin. Somebody's got to come and take all that away, and that's what our company does, is we take all that compostable material over to Charleston County. They actually have the facility, they compost it. So our company does three things. We sell the product, we collect the product, and then we also work with a lot of different special events and helping people green up their events and do, whether it's a wedding, whether it's a Charleston Fair, whether it's a Coastal Conservation League or Growfood Carolina event. So we try to help educate, and there's really a lot about educating people and letting them know what we can do. And so that's the company. We've been around since late 2011. So this is 4-year anniversary that we are coming up on. Yeah. So that's right. Sorry, I guess I should went off. You don't know who I am? What? What?
Who doesn't know anything?
I mean, I got sock game, people.
Garbage bag.
That's
We're gonna rotate.
Do you want me to?
Rotate?
Perfect.
Yeah,
Roll.
because then you guys don't have to listen to me. This is leadership.
By proxy.
The Coastal Conservation League started Growfood Carolina. It came out of their sustainable agriculture program, and they really were pioneers in terms of relating sustainable agriculture to conservation. Because if you can create successful farmers, those farmers stay on their land.
What we're trying to do is support the construction of a local food economy in South Carolina. Less than 10% of what we eat in this state is grown here. And it's short term, we feel like even if we went to 15, that represents millions and millions of dollars that goes back into the local economy and stays there.
We work with farmers, brand new farmers that are working on a half an acre to multi-generational farmers that are working on 1,500 acres. What nonprofit food hubs are doing are creating the infrastructure that the growers themselves may lack. And then we do all of the sales, marketing, and distribution for these growers.
What turned into maybe one delivery of 10 or 12 boxes now has turned into 2 deliveries a week of 25 to 30, even 40 boxes of vegetables.
Growfood allows us to provide local products to our customers. The quality of the farms has been outstanding, whether it be in the middle of the summer where we are having blueberries and watermelons to the fall where it's zucchinis and squashes. It brings our whole state under one roof.
They have helped us distribute our products, and it's an incredible partnership.
We're so busy with so many aspects of growing produce that we really don't have the time or the wherewithal to be able to really reach out and connect with the customers?
We were selling our salt to 4 or 5 restaurants, and now that we have partnered with Growfood Carolina, we're reaching dozens and dozens.
So then you take the sea salt from Bulls Bay and you put that onto the food, and you realize that you've got this full circle of this can't be had, this dinner cannot be had anywhere else in the world than right here.
You place one phone call, you're instantly in touch with 35, 40, 50 farmers at all times.
I think people come to expect the great product, and they expect it from Charleston. I'm sure they expect it from Growfood, and they expect it from us. So we try to deliver.
It really is probably the best thing that's happened to the farmers around here.
Very rewarding to walk into to Whole Foods and Earth Fare and to see our vegetables with our label on it. It's a sense of accomplishment. You've seen something through all the way.
The whole point of it is to try and keep small farms alive.
Amen.
Growfood is critically important to our success.
We make local easy. That's what we have set out to do.
What we have come to understand more and more as an organization is the role that agriculture plays in the economy.
Now to work. So that's Growfood. So my name is Sara Clow. I'm the general manager, and as the beginning of the video told you, we are part of the Coastal Conservation League. So Katie and I work together. In terms of, well, just to give you in case you didn't get it from the soundbite from the video, we're a food hub, and we're a nonprofit food hub, and what we do is we aggregate produce for local farms, and we do the sales, marketing, and distribution for them. The reason why organizations like Growfood exist is because of the globalization of our food economy. These small to mid-sized growers were being squeezed out of that system. And so what we needed to do was create infrastructure to replug them into that system, because a local food economy has exponential benefits really to, almost any aspect of the quality of life that you can think of. So I like to eat, which is eventually why I got into food. And again, similar to everyone else, I did not start out thinking that I was going to do this for a living, although I'm very lucky. I come from my mother as a chef. So I've known good food all my life. I grew up in a very Italian community where gardens and preserving your own food and making food from scratch was just something that we did. And so I didn't really understand that there was a difference until I got to college. I went to college in Nashville and started to understand that not everybody ate the way I ate growing up. And it made me nervous, although I did live on frozen yogurt freshman year because that's what all the other girls were doing, so I thought that that's what I was supposed to do. But my path was, again, very crooked. So I went from Nashville, then I lived in Colorado for 5 years, then I lived in California. I was in finance. I worked downtown. I was a hedge fund analyst. I hung out with a lot of big investment people that were very, very important and extremely boring. And the whole time, so I've waitressed my whole life, and I don't even know if that's PC to say anymore. Is it like stewardess? Am I allowed to say waitress? Yeah, I've served food. Because you were one. Okay, great. And it's one of those things, like, I love it, right? If I could still do it today, And I've said this to many chefs and restaurants, and I'm like, can I just come work one night a month? I'm like, because I have this really demanding job, which I love, but I also, like, I love to serve people food. I love to serve people good food. I love to talk about it. I love to watch them eat it. I love to serve people food that they don't know what it is, and it's their first time trying it. So I was kind of in a quandary because the finance to me was fascinating. I worked with a lot of very smart people, and it really taught me a lot, but I knew it wasn't what my life's work needed to be. So I quit my high-powered finance job, and I thought I wanted to be a farmer. So I went to New Zealand, and I farmed for 3 months. New Zealand should be on everyone's bucket list. The flight is very expensive, but once you get there, you can live on...
Unless you're in the military.
Unless you're in the military.
That was free.
There you go. You can live on $10 a day in camp, in very safe situations, and work for farms. Got back to California, worked for a couple farmers, very smart farmer who is still a very close friend of mine, said, Sarah, you do not want to farm. You have no money for land. You have no experience. And he's like, and honestly, you're a little old to start. And I think at that point, I was probably 29.
What is this, like basketball?
I know, but he said with your experience and business knowledge, you can help farmers in much more impactful ways. He said, it is noble that you actually want to put your hands in the ground, but this is not your best use. And so hearing that is always, you're a little like, you know, I'm a dreamer, you know, I wanted to be a farmer, and it's hard to hear. But at the same time, I was working for him at the markets, and it very quickly became apparent to me that that is exactly where I was supposed to be. Most farmers, this doesn't go for all farmers, but most farmers are not their own best marketers. It's not where they feel comfortable. They don't want to stand there for 8 hours a day telling you what a carrot is because they know what a carrot is. So I could very passionately and very explicitly translate for these farmers to their consumers why it was important to eat what they were growing and know who was growing it, how they were growing it, and why they were doing it. So yada, 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 10 years later, I'm in Charleston doing that very thing. One of the reasons why, so I was working for the largest organic tree fruit marketer in San Francisco for 7 or 8 years. This opportunity came with the Coastal Conservation League. They had ideas around this food hub. It was not fully formed yet, but the idea that I was also volunteering for an organization called the Marin Agricultural Land Trust when I was in California, which preserved agricultural land. And so the idea of conserving land for agricultural uses was very dear to my heart. And so I took the position. I moved 3,000 miles away from my home and landed in Charleston. And one of the biggest things, and I want this to kind of be the takeaway, is I moved here for an incredible opportunity with an incredible organization to literally start something from the ground up, and it scared the shit out of me. So, are you speeding me up? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, and I think, and I'm still scared. I still wake up in the morning. I'm stressed. You know, it's not. I'm 42 years old. Like, you know, I've had a very windy path. I still feel like I am at the very beginning of all of this, and I am nervous every single day.
Oh, yeah.
I think that is a good quality in a leader. I think a good quality is not sitting back and being like, I got this, you know, and it's humility and it's all of these things that we talked about. It's a good leader is constantly pushing forward, constantly asking questions about how themselves and the organization can be better, who is the next person we need to collaborate with, how do we move this forward. You know, in a management, I have it is uncanny the incredibly talented people that I have on the Growfood team. I really cannot explain how I've gotten so lucky, other than the fact that when they come in the door, and we've talked about this as well, I'm the most transparent person alive. I will tell you that any day I may not be the nicest person to work with. I push people really, really hard. I expect people to come to the table with good ideas. I will help them with those ideas, but it's just one of those things. I'm like, this isn't, it's an awesome job. We do an incredible thing. We get to work with amazing farmers and amazing chefs, but we also have to mop the floors at the end of the day. And you're not going to want to call somebody every single day and ask them if they want, and try to sell them the same potato that you sold them yesterday, and they're going to say no again. And that's okay. You still have to keep calling them. And so it's one of those things. Transparency is probably the word that I use most in my day-to-day job, and I use it with vendors, I use it with customers, I use it with staff, because I don't think that we can get anywhere without transparency. I think having open, honest communications all the time is the best thing that we can do, and collaboration, and just really, if it's the one piece of advice that I wish I had earlier in my career was, it's okay if you're scared, and you're gonna fail. There's all of those really poetic things that people put on posters that,
Eagles and mountains.
Exactly, like every leap of faith is success, and all of that is very exactly. All of that is very true, and basically it all boils down into, you are not, unless you take risks, you are probably not going to be an effective leader, because it takes risk to fail, and failure is okay, because it teaches you how to be better. So I would say, if you walk through your life and you're a little bit nervous waking up every morning, but you're doing a good job, then you're probably successful.
Katie?
So you guys all set up all of these little jagged paths, and I'm the one nerd of the group.
I don't know, Jen is pretty nerdy.
Nerdy in the fact that you followed a straight line.
I did. I followed a straight line. And I hate to say it, but I'm almost exactly where I was expecting to be, or hoping to be. So I work for the Coastal Conservation League. It's an environmental advocacy group based out of Charleston. We focus on the South Carolina coast. I direct our air, water, and public health program. And that sounds like I'm sitting, like I direct a program, I sit at a desk and do things. But it's a lot of activism is what it is. And also, I direct the program. I'm also the only staff member in the program. So I direct myself. And I am a hell of a leader. That's what my staff tell me. Allow myself to introduce myself. So I work on all sorts of issues that you may or may not be familiar with as you are Charleston citizens right now, because this campus is intertwined with the community, right? It's not its own separate campus, which I went here for undergrad and grad, and that was what kept me here, was being a part of the community. So I work on things ranging from getting cruise ship regulations in place, to organizing grassroots opposition to seismic testing and offshore drilling in the Atlantic, to getting connected and safe bike access on and off the peninsula, trying to get us better mass transit, negotiating ways to do landscape level conservation. When companies come in and want to fill in wetlands, so we sort of negotiate and figure out the best way to balance that. So I say I'm exactly where I expect to be. I didn't expect to be working on all of those different issues, but what I've always had a big fat mouth and cannot stay quiet when it comes to issues that I care about. I was always very quiet in school as a kid, but then I would get home and just, then I get home and just let loose. And so I got this idea in my head that I was going to be a lobbyist for Greenpeace. I think it was 9 or 10. I know I did. I just knew Greenpeace was the one that went out in the boats and saved the whales. I was like, that's awesome. And then, oh, but wait, I don't want to actually like get in trouble, so I'll do the talking side of it, but still didn't really know what that meant. But I also was very interested in, the transcendentalists. If you guys are doing English classes, just getting out there and reading a book. I was very into that, very into issues of inequality, all sorts of things. Just a huge nerd, and totally comfortable with the fact that I was a nerd and am a nerd. So I got to college, and here at the College of Charleston, and was so fascinated that it is part of the community. And immediately, I was an English major because I loved it. I didn't think about what my career path was because I was like, well, obviously I'm going to be the next Henry David Thoreau. That didn't work out. That was sort of one. You never know. But I minored in political science and environmental studies because I loved all of this stuff and couldn't choose and whatever. Still kind of couldn't keep my mouth shut about issues, and ended up having a really great mentor here who was a professor in the political science department, and she also was head of the Master of Environmental Studies graduate program at the time. And she really helped take all of my interests and what I was good at, which was bringing up issues and talking about them. She kind of helped me sort of hone that. And writing. I like writing a lot. And she sort of directed me on a really solid path of being involved in environmental advocacy. She also was on the board of the Coastal Conservation League, and so that's how I got introduced to the organization. As soon as I learned about it, that's where I'm going to work. And I was a junior in college when I made that decision, and that was 2001. That was that year. And so it didn't happen right away. I graduated and stayed here for grad school, did internships, had a consulting gig with the College of Charleston that was random. So there were sort of little, it was always environmental work, always. And finally a position opened up at the league, and I went for it and got it. And kind of, I'm sort of expecting, unless I get fired, to stay there for as long as possible. So it's sort of the opposite of what Jen said. But it's kind of perfect for me. And, we get to be the watchdogs of the South Carolina coast, and it's great. I get to say things and stand up for things that other people may or may not be able to do. I get to educate the community on issues they may not know about. One of the big issues right now is where density is appropriate. Dense developments are appropriate, and there are a lot of people in the community who consider themselves environmentalists, but don't like density. And our population is growing pretty quickly, right? We've got to put people somewhere. Do we want it to be in sprawling development patterns over a large swath of land, costing a lot of the services and taking up a lot of our ecosystem? Or do we want to have people sort of coalesced in sort of mixed-use village centers? And so there's a lot of education there that I get to be involved with. It's really interesting, and I meet all sorts of different people. The characteristic, this is really, Sara alluded to it, but I think it's really important, and that is the best characteristic to have as a leader, and my staff can confirm this, expecting a lot of people. And they may or may not disappoint you, but that doesn't mean you ever don't expect people to do the best that they can do. Because if you let people do what they're good at, they probably won't disappoint you. And so, it's one of those things where I've had to really practice over the years, trusting the people I work with to get the job done if I am too busy to do it. You know, like if you hand somebody a task, you've hired them for a reason, right? So trust that they're going to get that done and they're going to do the best they can. Trust people until they give you a reason not to, or if they give you a reason not to. The piece of advice, this is going to be the nerdiest piece of advice ever.
You realize how nerdy the rest are.
Right.
So you say that?
Yeah.
Nerd competition?
Okay, so nerd off. I don't know how many of you do this. You don't have to admit it, but I'm not going to ask. Do a 5-year plan, and if it all goes to hell, fine. But make sure you're constantly doing a 5-year plan and reevaluating it as things change.
Yeah, that is very nerdy.
It's super nerdy. Do it in an Excel spreadsheet. No. Set metrics. Set performance
You can
metrics.
measure
Evaluate them.
Yeah.
But it's so important to write down what you are expecting of yourself so that you can figure out how to get there. You can think about it all you want, but you're going to have to do stuff to make it happen. And it is such a nerdy piece of advice, and my mentor, she told me you should always have a 5-year plan, but she never told me it was going to change once I wrote it. So just do that, but also constantly reevaluate it as you're getting all this new experience. And it's kind of fun to, in a nerdy way, to go back and look and see how it changed.
I'm an astronaut.
No, really. Yeah.
Before I go into I think we're a little limited on time, so I'll just ask one question. We have enough time for you guys. One thing that I want to mention is if you guys are interested in getting involved with any of these organizations, I should have done this earlier, my apologies. Jen clearly works here. We have a ton of stuff to do around zero waste. Wayne, remember the first day that Wayne picked up the compost at CFC? Always available to come and see what that's like. It's not as messy as you think it is, except in the summer it's messy. Growfood Carolina was recently added as a vendor for our dining services. So talking about bringing in local food into your catering and into your dining halls. They also do a lot of great events, as does Coastal Conservation League. And if you're interested in signing up for CCL's emails that let you know when there are opportunities to get involved, definitely come up and talk. So I'm just going to ask one quick question, then I'll open it up for discussion. But what are certain traits or skills that you look for when hiring a new person into your organization? This is for everybody.
Do you want to go down or just chime in?
You just...
See, I had a better answer for another question, but I'm
Well, that's the opposite of the trait I was going to say, which is flexibility.
Flexibility. I'll jump in.
You can also answer the other question if you want.
Okay,
That's
I'll
okay.
go
I'm
quick.
not very sure.
I wrote down some quick words, and I think, yeah, so big things for me in terms of what I'm looking for in a trait or characteristic. Critical thinking. Jonathan, you and I talked about this at dinner, right? It's about the ability to think and analyze and look at an issue from different perspectives. The other thing is written communication skills. I've seen how even people in my generation have gotten lazy with their writing and all these stupid abbreviations and nonsense. I want sentences that have capital letters at the beginning and punctuation at the end. Yeah, right? So if you can do that, you got a huge leg up on the competition. And reliability. Like, hey, you're only a good worker if you're are there on time. So reliability is huge. Imagine those kinds of basic things there. So I'm going to give people, if I can come back to another question, I will, but I'm going to let everybody else talk.
I'll do very quickly the work that we do with Office of Sustainability. We interview a lot of people every semester, and the number one thing that we have found that it is impossible to teach somebody is drive. You can't teach that. I would take someone who came off the street, doesn't know a darn thing about sustainability, but is driven and passionate and wants to do it and will be there when they say they'll be there. They'll be there when they say they're not there. I mean, that is the thing you cannot teach someone is drive. And I'll hire somebody with drive over somebody with experience every day.
Yeah,
I mean, that covers it for me. I mean, it's true. It's true. I mean, you know, I think, especially, you know, as you guys start to graduate and stuff, interview skills, resumes, all of that stuff, that's the first thing that's going to get you in the door. So it's extremely important. I have made it a practice now to return people's resumes that have wild grammatical errors and spelling errors. I actually, but I mean, okay, so these are leaders, right? So and this is a very short story. One of my very closest friends was a English teacher in the LA Unified Public School System in Los Angeles. And I have had such issues, and she's also a huge political activist and very into equality. I have such huge issues with this that I finally went to her, and I will now send her the poorly written cover letter and the horrendous resume. And she uses it as a teaching moment because the language that I would put around it is not nice, and the language she puts around it is a teaching moment, which is great. But you know, and it's funny. We now there's a woman on my team who is our most recent hire. She's fabulous. At the end of her, and she put the cover letter within the email, which is fine. There were no instructions to not do that, so that's okay. Her signature on her email address was a Wendell Berry quote. Wendell Berry is one of my heroes. She spelled his name wrong. This signature had been on her email for years and years. She's got a graduate degree. This is a smart woman. I emailed her back and said, I just would like you to know that, you know, the name, this is how you spell Wendell Berry's name. She was very embarrassed. I hired her, okay? She works on the team now. This did not preclude her from working on the team. The reason I hired her is because the note that she sent back was not only funny, but poignant and well written. So, you know, but you don't often get second chances. So it's that whole, I mean, I sound like my mother. It's that whole first impression thing. but it's super important. Passion is equally as important, as well as, you know, communication. And we were just talking about it, the league the other day. Just be a human being. Like, it's not hard. Like, right? Be respectful, be hardworking, be good communicators. It's like, it's not, you know, we're not aliens. Like, we know of. Right, and like, show up with a smile on your face. You know, I mean, broody people are the last thing that anybody needs at work. Especially in this line of work. Right, don't be broody. You have a job. Most of the time the sun is shining. You're young. Like, show up and be excited to be there.
You can be broody at home.
You can be broody at home. Yeah, you can be broody with your parents. Yeah. Don't be broody at work. Yeah. Like, be psyched to be there. And if you're not psyched to be there,
go somewhere else.
Go somewhere else. Make a change. Fake it until you can get out of there. Do not stay in a job that you do not like. Because there's a million, and I know there's a money issue, I know there's all of these issues out there, but it is not serving you, and you are not serving that organization. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, and just as an addendum to that.
On your staff.
And this is a thing now. Don't have your parents call to schedule the interview. Don't.
That's a new one for me.
Red flag.
It's a thing now, and so I'm just gonna let you know. It's not gonna go over well.
I work in facilities, and you would be surprised what your parents
are doing.
Call and do.
You might not even know.
We talk about it in our morning meetings about how ridiculous the things that parents do.
Someone's fielding those calls. Awesome. Okay, I'd like to open it up to questions. Does anyone have a question for any of our panelists or for all of them? Yes, Haley.
So I know in y'all's line of work, you work with a lot of people that maybe disagree or have opposing views to yours. So what is some advice you guys might have at working with people?
That one? Yeah, if you just want to know, when you go home tonight or now, we have smartphones now, you can do it now. Google Coastal Conservation League news and just go to the electronic comments and then don't go too far because your head will yeah, people hate us. Some people really, the smart ones really love us. But it's one of those things where, and this is actually along the lines of having wonderful coworkers, having people you can vent to for a limited period of time. I mean, you don't want to like go crazy and then be the broody person at work. I mean, not that I'm pointing at her because she said it. But it's one of those things where any of you who are majoring in psychology, I mean, a lot of what we do, and I'm only speaking to the sort of environmentalism aspect to it. I'm sure in every profession it's like this, but I don't really know. A lot of it is Psych 101. Like, there's a reason why people are, really upset. And it's not that they necessarily hate me, although some might. I don't know. But, there's a lot of different things and reasons why people get really latched on to their opinion. There's tribalism, there is their friend that they love so much says this, so it has to be true, and even if it's not, they're going to support their friend. South Carolina, we have a major amount of cronyism in this state.
Special baby place.
It's, that famous quote is that it's too small to be its own nation, too big to be an insane asylum. We've got. Yeah, right. We're here to make it better, not. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into this, and basically, if you can 95% of the time smile and be polite and explain your rational, factually based position, they can disagree with you, but it's really hard for them to be mean about it. They might just say, all right, fine, agree to disagree. 10% of the time, sometimes you have to be very assertive in your position. And that's okay, as long as you're never super mean about it. But, there are some staff members of organizations that are a little bit afraid of me because, I'm pleasant till I'm not, and I'm not unpleasant, but I'm focused. This is using the facts, this is how it needs to be. How are we going to come to a resolution on this?
If I could take a quick stab at it too, I would say just be honest.
Right.
Always be honest about it. I don't have all the answers, and I'm not perfect. Right? It's about progress. It's about taking these little steps. Progress, not perfection. Acknowledge the downsides. That yes, there are things that I do as a profit-driven company. I think I'm the only one up here that is a for-profit, in a sense, right? But you know what? If you're not making money, then you're not in business, and then if you're not in business, you can't affect change. So there's a balance in there. And you're always going to run up against people that have a different viewpoint. Man, this is the toughest thing too, is don't take it personally. Keep the emotion out of there. Take the emotion out of it. Speak factually the best that you can. If there's a disagreement, that's fine. We're all going to grow from that. But just be honest and acknowledge that you're not perfect and that you don't have all the answers, and I'm willing to listen to anybody else that's got a potential solution.
I think which hopefully you've heard, that we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So the ratio of listening to talking should follow our anatomy. I think that's super important. I think separating the person from the issue is very important, especially in transparency, which I alluded to earlier. But I think if and when you are working for a larger organization, you also have to, and you can play both sides of the card, but you have to, in a professional situation, you have to first stop and say, right now I am representing the organization that I work for, and this is our goal, mission every day. Like we work with local growers at Growfood Carolina, right? State of South Carolina, these are the farmers that I work with. I come from a certified organic background. So there's a lot of differences in these two things. And it's okay, but when I talk to farmers on their farm, I'm talking about Growfood Carolina and how we're going to work with those farmers. And then if we get into other conversations, I am very comfortable saying my personal philosophy is this. And it's okay. Those two things don't have to be 100% eye to eye. But you have to understand your position within the organization. Outside of that, understand who the person is that you're talking to, and listen, and come from a don't bullshit. It is not going to get you anywhere. Come from fact-based information, because then you will have confidence when you're talking about it, and that speaks volumes. I think I've said shit twice, I apologize.
And the other really good trick that I have now is if somebody and I really are just disagreeing on everything, I've found, especially in Charleston, it's such a small place, like there's this one couple that just really despises everything about me because of our position on cruise ships. But they've rescued all of these animals. And so every time I see them, I'm like, hey, because all I can think about are all the little animals that they rescued, and not the fact that the last time they called me, they were screaming at me. So I just, pick out the wonderful things about them that you can just latch on to.
And sort of tying a couple pieces there together, I think one of the biggest mistakes that we all make as a society is that we talk to people when we disagree to change their minds. And you're wrong right there. Sorry. You're never going to do that. You need to start from understanding. Why do you feel the way you do? Let me understand that background. What are the values that you value that are driving you to want that, or to need that, or to feel that way? That's where you start. You're never going to come at someone and change their mind. But if you understand them, that gives you some leverage points, or some, okay, well, you like this thing, so maybe we can spin that a little bit to talk about it from this frame, and I can really highlight the benefits that this thing that you value and that makes sense to you, and that can, start to open things up to people and make it more relatable and more possible. So that would be my biggest piece on that.
It was a great question. It's a great question.
Take another question?
There's
Literally
there's
answered everyone's
There
questions.
it is.
Thank
Back
you.
row's going. Back row's on fire.
I got you. So, how do you get people to care?
Just kidding. So I think I would tie that back into what I just said. You can't make anyone care.
That's right.
You can't. You have to. This is, I think, one of the biggest pieces. I want to look at your face. One of the biggest pieces that we talk about sustainability from the Office of Sustainability is that change is value driven. You will change for things you value, and if you don't value something, you're not going to change. So you can enforce things, but that's not real sustainable substantive change. That's, I'm going to do it this way until somebody's not looking, and then I'm going to go and do whatever I want. So you can't make people care. All you can do is understand why they don't care, and maybe find pieces in there to relate to their values.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about ACA for first year?
Yeah, so a really cool example of this is Charleston Affair. How many of you know about Charleston Affair? Everybody knows about Charleston Affair. So I have been working with the people doing Charleston Affair for about 4 or 5 years. We started just basic recycling, putting out some recycling bins, did a little bit better one year, did a little bit better one year, and when this guy came on board, Ashlyn and I sort of, like evil connived, like, we can make this zero waste. This is doable.
Don't tell anybody.
So we sort of formulated our plan for a year and kind of molded over and chewed on it, and finally approached them, and we were like, we want to do this. We want to make this happen at Charleston Affair. And it was like deer in headlights. Like, what? You want composting? Because people think of composting, they think of flies, they think of stink. Like, no, guys, it's just in a different container. So it took us 6 months to convince the team running Charleston Affair that this was a valuable thing for the campus, that it had marketing value, that it made how materials moved through the space a lot easier and a lot more straightforward. And we had to basically bring in the big dogs to kind of gain legitimacy for ourselves. But after we did it the first year, the second year, I think was it in our recap meeting, we sort of were just talking about how things went, and we're like, okay, you know, is this something you might think about doing? And she was like, yes, absolutely. When are we doing? Where's the meeting? Where's the next meeting? So we were able to demonstrate that we could do it. We were able to shift the value, so it's not just about being a hippie walking around in barefoot, you know, smell like trash. This has benefits for the event as a whole, and to show them that and to give them something that they can relate to, that made it possible and went from absolutely not to when are we doing this again.
So yes, so showing value. I think that's the best thing you can do, is like get them to care is how does it benefit them, because that's more like your values driven, and how does this benefit. So if you can show that there's value in it, that there's potential to.
Yeah, and I just want to add patience. Because all of these things, this is not change that happens overnight. No. I mean, you know, Katie can talk about a million different issues that the Coastal Conservation League has been working on. I mean, how long has it been? 5, 26, 10 years?
Oh, since 25.
Yeah, so it's one of those things, and you know, an example for me always is my friends were like, what do? You work with farmers, right? As soon as all of them started having kids, they're like, what should I feed my baby? You know, they've been eating crap their whole lives, and then they're like, I don't want to mess this thing up, you know? And that is an example of people's values changing. And so it's understanding their values and then understanding that there can be change over time, but you need to be very, very patient, which is very, very frustrating. But, you know, there are times when you're going to be able to look back and you'll say, okay, it didn't happen quickly, but I can see a change in the value system that I helped to affect.
And we do a lot of unexpected coalition building. So, you know, you would traditionally assume environmentalists are all liberal Democrats, but they're not. And so, you know, depending on, we've partnered with Tea Party groups on certain issues. If what we're trying to get done also, you know, saves money and keeps government out of whatever we're working on. A lot of the road stuff that we're working on, we've got a lot of Tea Party support. You know, for certain things, we'll partner with bike groups. For certain things, we'll partner with fishermen. You know, you never know what is going to pique someone's interest, and so be very open to whoever it is that's interested. And also be, it's really important that going back to what we were talking about before, if you're always honest and transparent, and your positions are fact-based, and you're willing to admit if you don't have the facts to support your position, you're like, I gotta do some more research, sorry about that. Then people will respect you more, and they'll come back to you on something else that they want to know about.
We have time for 1 or 2 questions. Yes, ma'am.
I had a question specifically for Charleston Food Waste Disposal. Once the county creates the compost, are they able to like close the loop and sell it back to local farmers, or how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. So there's a lot of different ways. In fact, that's their biggest challenge right now is to get rid of it. We're providing them with so much feedstock, and they're generating so much compost that they need more outlets for it. So you know, the private residents can go and get it. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you can bring your 5-gallon pail and pay $0.25 to get it. You can buy it by the ton. You can buy it by the yard. You can buy it by the bag. There's a bunch of different ways you can get it. And they have reached out to local farmers. You probably know. I mean, there's some of them are. Again, is it it's not fertilizer in the sense that you would, same stuff you would buy and spray and spread on, but there are different advantages to it from erosion and soil moisture retention, all those kinds of things. So, but also trying to make the connections with DOT so that on any sort of DOT projects that they use a certain amount of it. Department of Transportation. Sorry. Yeah, right. So just finding all those different outlets for it. But yes, there are a lot of different ways to get rid of it, and so.
And didn't it get an award?
Yes.
It did. So Charleston County won the 24 2014 U.S. Composting Council's Composter of the Year award, which is pretty
If you guys haven't been there, I mean, you want to talk about geek style, but it is awesome.
It is.
I mean, the amount of money that this county invested in this composting facility, I mean, it is state of the art. It will blow your mind.
Yeah.
Wait, can you just do like a really quick overview of the composting process from when it leaves
So
Liberty?
So once it leaves Liberty, it goes into a 25-yard dump truck with everybody else's waste from Citadel and MUSC and Charleston Public Schools and whatnot, and then goes up to Charleston County. And so what they do is they've been collecting all everybody's yard waste. That's your carbon-based goodies right there. So to make compost, you got to have carbon, you got to have nitrogen. Your food is the nitrogen source. You know, plus you've got all the good phosphates and everything else, all your other minerals, potassium, and so they create a three-sided berm of yard waste that we back up and dump out all this slop, and it hits the ground, and we get splashed, and it's great. But it's incredibly rewarding. I'm telling you, this is no joke. Every day, including today, you know, when you dump and you see 20,000 pounds of food waste hit the deck, and you feel like you've just done something. There's an immediate sort of yes, we did something, and we did something good.
This is the thing.
This is it. This is the stuff, right? And
Because
so there's
it's not going in the landfill. Do you guys recognize that
This is-
because it's
this is
going here,
why
it's
we
not going
compost.
into a landfill?
That's right.
And people think that they're like, sure, I can chuck my apple core out of the window of my car because it'll degrade.
Right.
It will. At some point.
Some point, somewhere, right? So
Sometime.
Unless
So what
a
the-
mouse comes up
and
and
he-
starts digging at it,
exactly.
and a bird of prey swoops down and gets it.
yeah, so once it hits there, then they cover it up, they mix it up, they add more carbon to it. You want to have about 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen, so they put more on there. They grind it up, they add a little microbe, gets the thing going. The pile gets up to about 155 or 160 degrees. The reason for that is you want to drive that pile through pasteurization, which anybody know? Biology geeks.
What's the question?
What's pasteurization temperature to kill all the bad microbes?
No, 150?
What did I hear?
180.
131. 131 degrees. So that's the quick down and dirty.
That we actually get some back on campus and they use in our landscaping.
Yep.
I just had an offshoot of that question. I know there's currently a surplus of compost at the East Area landfill, but do you think there will ever be a push for a neighborhood pickup?
A residential pickup of organics? Yeah, you know, that's really kind of the next frontier. I get asked that question a lot. It's the final frontier of compost. It's going to take a big switch, right? Because we have people right now that can't comprehend what's recyclable and what's trash.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of apathy. There's a lot of apathy, and I don't mean that to be mean. I'm just saying that.
No, we're gonna do a brown bag at the Conservation League for staff.
For staff about
Right.
recycling.
Because people
so.
throw, you know, and so it's going to come down to being something that is driven by the residential community, right? It works well in San Francisco. It works well in Oregon, you know, Portland and Seattle, because there just seems to be more of a collective thought consciousness that that's the way to go. And here, it's not so much. It freaks me out, right? Because we have all these outdoor conservation, conservative, all this, and then, you know, don't tell me that I can't use a plastic water bottle. I mean, or plastic bag or styrofoam. We love our foam, right? So,
I'll just
Calm
give a
down on
couple
your
of
phone.
quick pieces to that. Our landfill out at Beastberry has about 15 to 20 years of life left. When that gets done, it will be 312 acres piled 10 stories high of our trash. And again, we think trash goes away, right? We throw it away. No, that's why we've changed the language on our trash cans to say landfill. Because
Yes.
guess what? That's where it's going.
Yep.
They've done things where they've taken cores of landfills, they drill down with a big drill, and they pull up stuff from like the 1950s. It doesn't break down.
It's intact.
It's mummified hot dogs, mummified heads of cabbage. It doesn't go anywhere.
Right, and that's and I think that's, Sarah, you were saying, you know, go take a trip out there. If it doesn't make you more aware, then you're just sleepwalking through the whole process, right? Because you see over here, you've got a small piece of land that is being used for composting, and it can be changed over and over and over and over again. Because by the time I bring this feedstock in to the time that it's ready to go, it's 60 days. All right, so you can turn those rows over. The landfill stays forever, and people think, oh, you know, if I throw this compostable cup in the land, no. When you throw it in the landfill, you take away the sunlight, you take away the moisture, you take away all the things that are needed for biodegradation, and it's just a tomb. It's just, whatever goes in there, it mummifies. And so you hear about methane in landfills. What causes methane? The breakdown of organics. It's not when you throw a piece of plastic or glass or rubber or anything else in the landfill. That doesn't break down, that just stays there. So when organics go into the landfill, that's what's causing your methane. And pure and simple, nothing else. So if you can get all the organic material out of the landfill and put it into a higher and better use, that's the whole idea behind composting.
Just to continue on that one more question. So what is there an option for me besides creating my own personal compost?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So on campus, they have a compost pickup. It's not an industrial, so they don't do some of the plastics or the more harder to break down things like cooked meat, cooked grains and things. But for like your veggie and fruit scraps, on Fridays over at 40 Cumming, right where Cumming and George kind of intersect, you've probably seen a big thing. It's yellow. It says compost on the back end of that. They'll take compostable things. So we realize that not every single one of you wants to get a compost tumbler and put that on your porch and tumble your compost, but this is an option for you.
Or also knowing that you've got facilities here. There's 4 different.
We're working on that.
Sorry. Yeah.
We're working on that. Again, step 1, let's get recycling down. When we get that, then we'll add organic. I'm headed that direction.
And if you can have just like a 5-gallon, what do you call those?
Pail.
This is the coolest / geekiest thing ever. You can grow oyster mushrooms on your food scraps, and then the oyster mushrooms will essentially eat all of the food scraps, and then when the mushroom runs out of food, it grows a mushroom right on that pile, and then you get to eat the mushroom. They're tricorder of mushroom mountain made. Yeah, this awesome video about it.
You guys don't know about Mushroom Mountain up in upstate.
YouTube that.
So cool.
Yeah.
You don't have to eat it.
Yeah.
And let's be clear, these aren't like the mushrooms. These are like put in your stir fry. Yeah, that kind of mushroom.
You can sell it back to the restaurant. Growfood.
Okay guys, so it is 8:30. If you have any questions, I can put you guys in touch with any of our amazing panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming and being here.